So
Hello.
hi, yay! How you
Hi.
doing?
I'm all right. Yeah. Bit sleepy, but
Excellent.
I'm good. Yeah.
Nice to see you again.
And you? How have you been?
I can't remember. It's all been good. It's all been good. It's all been good. I've had a really, really good week. So where are we? We're less than a week away from Christmas now,
Oh God.
and so it's just tidying up loose ends so that I can. And this is the first time in 25 years that I haven't had a venue. That's amazing, isn't it? So this will
Yeah.
probably be my first proper Christmas like the way normal people do it,
Mm-hmm.
um, without being engaged in the hospitality industry. Because I think even when I was a student, I used to work, New Year's Eve and
Mm-hmm.
Christmas Eve and stuff. So yeah. So my husband's a carpenter, and he takes, as the building trade does, 2 weeks off.
Nice.
And obviously my daughter's still at school, so and the rest of the kids are still, at school, so they have 2 weeks off. So I thought I'd join them and have 2 weeks off. I don't know what I'm going to do myself. I don't think I'm going to manage it, but we'll see.
I'm sure they'll find ways to keep you busy.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Actually, they will, won't they? Anyway, what about you?
Yeah, good. Tired because hospitality at Christmas. Um, so for anyone who was following the will he won't he with Scott Mills coming to Dog Santa, he
Yeah.
did. He and Sam both came with the cute little pooch who didn't throw up, which was very nice.
Oh no, I don't want to know. I don't know what
No,
about
no, it's
that.
fine. It's fine. It's fine. Doesn't never happened.
Anyway, but yeah, so typical hospitality Christmas, busy, 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 was it?
Yeah, so Saturday and Sunday I had Dog Santa on, and it was madness. It was no matter what you did, there was no way of keeping on top of it all. It was so some days we have. I find it really strange at Bitsy's that some days we have like where it's just steady all day, and then other days you have where you have a rush of 10 people because it's so small. You get 10 people coming and you feel it. You have a rush of 10 people like every hour or so. And so you deal with that busy bit and then you clean up and you deal with the other bit. Dog Santa has been a combination of them both. So it's been constant. And then every hour or so you have a big rush as well. So there's literally no time to stay on top of everything. You are literally just fighting fires all day and just trying to get through it. But it's good fun and it goes quickly. And fortunately, all of the people who are coming there are people who are coming out their way and they're all happy about coming to see Dog Santa. So they're all friendly and it's fine. That everyone's very understanding if you're not completely, we're not a fast food place. So everyone's very understanding, but it is very full on.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because I sort of I know when you do it and you stood behind the bar, or in your case sort of the cafe, and but you're still serving, and you're very aware that people are waiting and that and that there's a delay because you're so busy, but you're also aware of actually that everyone's tolerating that and it's fine, and that the
Yeah.
customer service levels are still high even though there's long wait times and stuff. But I think, and I'm just sort of reflecting on that, sort of like, because as a operator or as a manager or as the owner, if you're in that situation and you're not the one on the floor particularly, that you come in and you sort of feel the stress of the customer, because you're thinking, oh, this customer's been waiting a really long time, and on my service standards are they don't wait this long, and they've been waiting longer than I'm happy with, so therefore they must be unhappy, which means we have to get faster, we need to do more,
Yeah.
we need to do more, we need to do more. And I think that's a challenge, isn't it?
I think obviously the key to it as a member of staff is just maintaining that communication with the customers and making sure they understand the expectations, because obviously things are going to take time because you want to keep sending out things of the right quality, and that takes time. If you're not, we're not, as I say, we're not a fast food place, so you want to send out quality, they may have to wait a little bit. And obviously every time I'm there communicating it to customers, I mean, I've probably had one occasion where someone's been even slightly grumpy about it, but actually they're fine as long as you keep them informed. But it's just obviously, as you say, even as a manager, you might feel that you're not meeting those standards. But as a member of staff, there is a little part of you that's a bit like, oh, but you're there because you enjoy helping people and you want to give them the best possible experience. And then obviously if that slows down, it's inevitable, but it's also, you do feel a little bit, there's pressure, but as I say.
But that's the interesting thing, isn't it? That you think that the stress would be because you're so busy. And actually, I have had members of staff who have just like got totally overwhelmed because it's busy, and you just have to end up having a conversation with them saying, perhaps hospitality is not for you. But I mean, on my jobs, when I first started in the industry, my first 2 jobs were one in a pub and one in, well, the pubs really, but massive, big, one tourism, on the students, and it was just so busy. And in both cases, it's just long queues all day long, every single day, constant. And one of the first trainings I ever had in one of those pubs was about greeting customers. And we used to have the service standard used to be that someone came to the bar and you greeted them within 10 seconds and you served them within 2 minutes. And but you know, when you first introduced that, and ever since then, I've always trained all my staff in exactly the same thing. And you can see sometimes they look at you and go, "What do you mean? You know, we're 6 deep at the bar, and how can we greet everybody within 10 seconds?" And I go, because a greeting is just eye contact. You just need to make eye contact with somebody. And the thing is that when you see that working, that you do greet everybody as they come to the bar within 10 seconds. You see how how it calms the situation, and everybody therefore is prepared to wait. And it's that whole thing with the customers sort of going, okay, I've been acknowledged, because a lot of that jostling and that frustration's coming from, I don't know how long I'm going to be stood here. Is anybody actually care? Does anybody even care that I'm stood here waiting? And am I going to be served in order? And the thing is, I know in a cafe these days, you know, it's actually queues, isn't it? So actually, it knows they're going to be served in order, so at least that bit's taken out of it. But you know, when I used to work in the pub I used to work in was so long. There were 15 till points, and there were three people on every single till, right?
Ouch.
So it was, I know, and then we were 6 deep at the bar. It was hideous. I mean, no, not hideous. It's so much fun, but from our point of view, but the fun for me was the making sure that I greeted everyone within that 10 seconds and then served them within 2 minutes. And then because you're greeting everybody, you've got in your head the order that you're serving people, and it just makes the job so much more fun and enjoyable, because that becomes a game. But from the point of view of the customer, you know, they're just totally relaxed, because they're going, well, I know that she knows that I'm the one after that one, so I can just stand in here and be chilled and relaxed and not have to worry about it. And I think but this is going back to what I'm saying. So when you're on the floor and you're the one doing that, you're in control of that, and you know that you're in control of the customers and the expectations of this. It's expectations, isn't it? Because what you're doing is you're setting expectations. You're saying, I know you're gonna, and so and everyone's calm. But then if I reflect back then on as somebody who's actually managing the whole venue rather than just the bar, that you know, you wander off. I'm not wandering off. I'm off doing other things, but you're off doing other things. Then you come back. You come back to the bar, and it's you know, 6 deep, and it looks like chaos. And you have to go, okay, are these customers okay, or are these customers now irritated that they're waiting so long for their drinks, or you know what I mean? And so, and you don't know that, so you have to have this element of trust with your staff that they do know that. And I think that's really tricky, because otherwise you get into this situation.
I was going to say, obviously you've seen it both sides, so obviously you've got a very clear picture of what it's like as a junior member of staff working that and just having to deal with what's in front of you, and the experience of someone who's overseeing it and having to worry about everything else. I remember when we were doing the market the other day, a member of staff who wasn't working that day was like, "Oh, how did it go?" And I was like, and then everyone was like, "Oh, it's really busy and blah, blah, blah." I was like, "It was great. I just dealt with the problem in front of me. I was just on the counter saying hello to everybody, dealing with the problem in front of me, and then I was like, oh, but poor Sharp, she had to deal with everything else. And I was like, and it's like, so actually being there and being able to just do what's in front of you, and like you say, acknowledge people as they come in and deal with the problem right in front of you, is, you know, it's as long as you're able to stay calm in that situation, it's pretty straightforward. It's just keep going. But if you're trying to oversee everything, and then you come back and you see this queue of people and the chaos that it looks like, and you don't necessarily have, you know, you're not necessarily aware that it is sort of under control and expectations are being managed. I mean, that's obviously a very different story, isn't it? It must be a very different
Yeah, but I think that all
position.
comes down to trusting your team. And so it is about having trust and faith in your team that they know what their job is and they know how to do it. But I think then, you know, going back to being the person in charge, actually that trust, there's two things. One, it is just basically, you know, you just have to let go a little bit and go,
Yeah.
okay, I need to trust my team and we are a team and we can work. But when you get these periods in time when this happens, you've also got to know whether or not you've been good enough at training their staff. And I know that this is, you know, back in the early days of me owning my own place. And, you know, when I first started, my first venue only employed 3 people. So being a team and creating that team spirit and everyone knowing what they needed to do and everyone knowing and being trained to a high level was reasonably straightforward and easy. Fast forward to some of my later projects, but you know, where you've got, you know, at one point, you know, I was employing 70 people across 2 sites. You know, and to know that every single member of staff knows what they're doing and has been trained properly or is in the right stage of being there, you know, when these occasions happen, it's much harder to do. And to be able to trust your team to get on with it, which is, you know, and it's why you put in structures like having the manager, your assistant manager, your supervisors, because it's about making sure that the knowledge is and the management of that is going all the way down to your junior members of staff, as opposed to having to do it yourself. But it was much more comfortable for me when I was running smaller teams. You know, even when even when we had the restaurant, you know, the first one, we'd probably had, we'd had less than 20 members of staff, but you'd always be aware that, you know, where people were with their training, and then you'd always make sure that they were assigned to the right place at the right time and that you were using them in the right way, and confident in their abilities, or be very aware of where their lack of knowledge was, so you could support them. It became very difficult in some of my later venues when particularly actually at the Gatehangs Well, which was the last place I was at, because with that place, the problem I had there was we opened straight after COVID. We were busy instantly. We had a brand new team, no system set up. We didn't know anybody, so it was so nobody knew each other. So there was no team, there was nothing there, and so they all needed training pretty much from scratch. Even the ones that had been previously trained elsewhere or had experience, they still needed training in the way we were doing things, and we had to create all of that ourselves. The problem that caused, well, the difference between that and then how I did that, you know, way back with the small venue. With the small venue, you had the set culture and it was already there. And then as you expanded and grew, you were just building on it. So you always had other team members who understood what you were doing and why you were doing it, understood the culture. With the Gatehangs Well, where we were setting up something brand new, it was starting from scratch with a brand new team. And that's really quite rare, actually, where you come with absolutely no one else knowing anything except for you and having to train them all. That in itself is not necessarily a problem, but what made it really difficult there was because in those first few days we were so short-staffed, And it was basically I'd employed, basically, very long story, and this is probably time for another episode of where it's gone wrong recruiting. But I'd employed staff, but I'd sacked the chef literally the day we opened. I just knew it wasn't going to work. And then my learning was, it's not going to work with this guy, and so I shouldn't be moving him forward at all. I need to just cut loose and take my chances. And it's not that backfired. It's just that was a difficult decision at that point. But it left me on opening day with no chef. And so I had to, and I think I've discussed this before, but I had to go into, I've discussed it a lot. Most people know that. I had to go into the kitchen and be the chef. Actually, we discussed it last week, didn't we? But the reflection on that is that the plan had been to open the Gate Hangs Well, for me to run front of house and kitchen, but from front of house.
Yeah.
And create the culture, create the team, and train everybody. What actually happened was, because I actually physically had to go into the kitchen and set up the kitchen and run the kitchen and be the person, for every hour that we were serving food in the kitchen, it meant that I had to leave front of house to just get on with it, which meant I left the whole team with only the very basic level of training that I got through, which is the first 2 weeks of pre-opening, which meant that, therefore, when we got hit with being busy, all the things we're saying now, which is trusting your team, I was capable of trusting the team because I really liked them and I knew I'd recruited them well and I knew that they knew what they were doing. But I didn't trust them because I knew they didn't know how I wanted it done. Because I hadn't had the opportunity to train them. And training's two things. It's not just telling people what you want and getting them on board. It's also then the period after, which is showing them and demonstrating it and coaching and mentoring and all of those kind of things. And with the Gate Hangs Well, I just never had the opportunity to do that. And so actually, I mean, in terms of it being a failure on my part, it was. But in terms of hospitality, in that it was very, very difficult then to turn that around, because you've got teams that are sort of, and they're doing brilliant. They are doing brilliantly, but they're not. We haven't created what we need to create because the leadership in me had to go elsewhere, and it just creates a whole set of other tensions. Because then I'm coming out of the kitchen and going, what's going on? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And actually, people are just doing their best. And I wasn't being a horrible employer. I wasn't. I was being a nice, gentle employer. But on the other hand, my frustration, my stress was being, was there because the circumstances had prevented me from being able to train properly and to be able to instill the culture that I wanted. But it's tough because I felt really bad for the because I've got so much experience. What I didn't want to do is come in and say to the staff, oh, why haven't you done that? Why has that not happened? Why are we doing it in that order? Shouldn't we be doing that first? Why are you doing that? Why are you not doing that? Because that's not fair on people either. They're working really, really hard, doing their best given what they know. And actually the failure is at my end, not theirs.
But at the same time, sort of what you're saying, the failures at your end, it's actually sort of, you're framing it as a failure, but it was just, at the time, it was completely unavoidable. It was something you couldn't have, it was an unexpected situation that you couldn't have dealt with in a different way.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at myself in that I could have not sacked the chef.
You could have, but then that would have created other problems, wouldn't it?
I would have created a huge set of
exactly. Yeah. So, and I think that's one of the things that is really prevalent in hospitality, that there's always going to be some sort of challenge. Particularly, do you find sort of post-COVID, obviously there were recruitment issues and things like that, actually getting the numbers of staff in. But have you found that customers are treating places differently post-COVID as well? So sort of like balancing, because obviously I know how I am as a customer, but that's as someone who's worked in hospitality. and I know what the customers are like where I work, but that's because it's a very distinct place. And so it's sort of whether the experiences I'm having post COVID as a customer is something that's sort of happening in other places. Are people more understanding? Are they more patient with your staff, or are the demands still as high as they ever were?
This is really interesting because genuinely, because I actually haven't noticed a particular difference in that culturally as a society we change all the time. And so I could tell you that over particularly the last decade, customers have changed, and their expectations have changed, and how they interact with venues has changed. So yes, but I don't think it's necessarily to do with COVID.
Yeah.
I think the thing is about COVID, and we talk about pre and post COVID. COVID was this gap in our trade, which would have had, you know, the continuation of change would have happened through that. So when it didn't happen, you know, then you notice a change more. I think there's some things that have changed because of COVID, but I think in the main, society and our culture and the way we interact was changing anyway. It just maybe sped up a bit. But it's interesting. You say you think people, or you think people are more basically generous and patient, because actually that isn't, and it's not my experience, but a lot of feedback that I've had from others in the hospitality industry, or people talking about the hospitality industry, is that customers are actually less tolerant and far more demanding than they used to be. I haven't experienced that at all. Not really. I think that, you know, I think the changes we're heading in that direction anyway, in that, you know, sort of this, you know, this culture of when you're unhappy, you don't complain, you go on TripAdvisor and write a snarky review, even though obviously your choice of venue that you went to was the wrong choice for you, not that they were doing anything particularly wrong for their typical customer. Anyway, I have a whole thing about that, but to be honest, that's been the last 10-15 years, you know, that's been a slow progression of people's expectations. And I think that also, you know, there's some explanation as to why people are less tolerant when things don't go right, in that things are so much more expensive these days. You know, inflation over the last few years has meant that, you know, even your cup of coffee's gone up by 50%. You know, and certainly going out for a meal now, you go out for Sunday lunch now, it's a huge amount of money that you're spending, not compared to what you were spending in 2019. I say that as opposed to, because there's been so many factors since 2019 that have meant that prices have increased so much over that time. And that's not to say that the prices are wrong or unfair. It's to say that actually it's just because it's happened like that, it feels very noticeable, and therefore, and also I think COVID gave people so many opportunities to change their behaviours and change their habits, that therefore, you know, these it just became much more noticeable as to how much people were spending. So therefore, I think that when people are spending what they perceive to be more money on things, and more of a percentage of their disposable income on a Sunday dinner or going out for a drink, then actually they're probably quite right to be demanding the higher standards. And that's probably correct from their point of view. Certainly I feel like that. I don't mind spending money on stuff, but I want value for money. I don't want to spend money on something and go, oh, I had fish and chips, that was rubbish, but it cost me however much money. Do you know what I mean? I don't mind it being rubbish fish and chips as long as it was cheap. Yeah, I don't mind the staff not smiling at me so long as I'm not paying for, you know, a huge amount of money. You know, I don't mind queuing so long as it's, you know, all of those things. But when you're paying a high amount, you want to have those. There's a set of things that you go, okay, was that value for money? Was my experience worthwhile? But then also at the same time as prices going up, the hospitality industry's had to cut back a lot. You know, quite, not everybody, but you know, you have had to make cuts to what was already a difficult job to deliver. They're now having to do it on less staff because staff is always the highest cost. And so they're reducing their staff and trying to deliver. Basically, fundamentally, quite often they can't deliver the same level of standard that they were. So I think there's a lot more to complain about. And I think there's a lot more ways that people can complain and feel entitled to complain. So I think that makes sense. But going back to your point that actually you've noticed people being kinder and more generous and thoughtful. I mean, that's lovely. But I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And I think that there's lots of things.
I was going to say that actually I think perhaps my experience is that they're more understanding, not necessarily. So that as long as you are delivering the quality and the care and, you're being kind and friendly and all of that, as long as you're managing expectations and what have you, I think they seem to be, as far as I can tell, more willing to accept that other things might, your service might be a little bit slower because you can't actually afford to have that extra member of staff. Or you may not have, because I'm obsessed about clearing tables. As soon as someone's finished with something, it needs to go. But people sort of bringing things back to you and just little things like that. And it's just whereas sort of as a manager or a business owner, obviously you're juggling the needs of your customers with obviously the well-being of your staff and all those little things, and whether there are little bits there that perhaps we just need to accept that with the challenges we're experiencing at the minute, that it can't be perfect.
Yeah, but I think
and how that is, and sort of how you manage that, obviously.
But I think what you might be describing is not necessarily about how customers in a big entity are behaving, but how individuals are behaving. Because, and I don't think that what you're necessarily describing is anything different to how they always have. I think, and I think this is always sort of the additional cherry on the top about good customer service, because everyone knows that good customer service, helps a business in terms of, return customers, and basically it's your word of mouth marketing that is getting done for you when you get customer service right. And the value of word of mouth marketing is beyond any other type of marketing. It's number one really for hospitality industry. But I think what you're describing is how humans behave in any case. I think when they experience kindness from other people, and in this case, even when it is customer service and for a service that they've paid for, they reward that with kindness in return. So this is other thing, isn't it, that's going on there, that if you're in a venue that's getting its customer service right, you're actually always going to get nicer customers. They just are. It's I mean, when I had one of my venues, and I was pregnant with my first child, and I worked right up. I mean, I didn't take maternity leave, but I had the second. Well, I had the second one. I was like, going, right, this time I'm taking maternity leave. I still didn't, and even on my fourth child, I still didn't manage to take maternity leave. But on my first, I didn't even plan to. So I was working right the way up to having him, and serving customers. And it was the point when this happened, and I thought, I need to not be working now. It's when I was serving a customer and took their breakfast out, and then said, "Can I get you any sauces or anything like that?" Yeah, great. Yeah, please, would you? And I said, "Yeah, great. I'll go and get them." And they said, "Oh no, let us." It's this great big pregnant woman going to go and get them their tomato sauce. But actually, if you go to venues that are delivering very high levels of customer service, you see that happens all the time, that the customer actually wants to help the member of staff as well. And I always say this, when you've got a really young member of staff and they're not very confident, that actually the customers do want to be they're on your side. And that actually, as you say, it's managing expectations and being honest with customers and and having that openness with them, that then you're no longer working in that environment where where it's, there's any status between you. You're now, in a much more, I mean, and this is the whole thing about hospitality, and even at all, that certainly one of the big cultural changes over the last 25 years, but longer than that really, and certainly speeding up right now, is that we're becoming a much more egalitarian society, in that we no longer believe in serving, and sort of the Downtown Abbey type of thing. You go to a Michelin star restaurant or fine dining, and you do still expect it, but most people know that's a drama. That's
it's performative.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that these people are less than, and I think it's very rare as a customer that you go anywhere and think like that anymore. And certainly your staff don't behave like that, nor will they tolerate being treated like that. So I think there's a lot of this is there's a cultural change within that as well. So I think customers being kinder and nicer, I think, as I say, is part of that wider cultural change, in that they're no longer treating hospitality staff as though they are servants, but equally that also that there's a natural instinct for human beings to help each other anyway. And you've been to, I mean, we all have, we've been to somewhere, and there's some really young member of staff that you can see that's trying really, really hard, and you just want to go, oh, come on, I'll help. Come on, we can do this together. And so I think there's a lot of that going on. But I think as a maid, I think expectations are higher. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I think that's why as we're sort of going full circle here, that's why I think customer service becomes even more important. And I think it's challenging in an environment where we're short-staffed, and we've got staff for a multitude of reasons. But I still think that, if you're training your staff that actually customer service is about being kind to other people, and there's an understanding there that it is being, setting expectations and then exceeding expectations. That's what customer service is all about, and also where the joy of the industry comes for so many people.
Obviously, there is an expectation that, sort of, as you're saying, like, if your staff are putting that out there, they're likely to receive it back as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been at the cafe for a month and a half, a bit more now, and I'm still going, oh, I'm really new, I can't find anything. Oh, there's so much selection. Oh God, there's so much choice, I can never find it on the till. And everyone's lovely and just fine about it. And as long as I say, it's being friendly, managing those expectations, making the customer feel important because they are, and then they return it in kind for the most part. So,
but the thing is, it's just going back to saying, we're talking about, working behind a bar, but I was just sort of reflecting, even when you're in a restaurant, this is it's a whole thing. I mean, there's very few good places that are not explaining to their staff, sometimes something's happening in the kitchen, whether it's because it's busy or something's gone wrong or they're short-staffed or whatever, and there's a delay, or I mean, actually in my case, there's one, I've dropped pie on the floor just as I'm serving it, and it's the longest thing it takes to cook, so it's a 25-minute delay, and it's just like, but mistakes happen. But I think this is really, you sort of hammer into your staff, you need to communicate with customers. So if you tell a customer there is a delay, and you tell them how long it is, then normally they're totally fine, so long as you get in there quickly, so long as they're not worried about it. Because actually what's causing a lot of the stress is their worry that I do it all the time. You go, well, I've been waiting 35 minutes. Have they forgotten our order? How long do I sit and wait before I ask? Whereas if someone comes to you after 25 minutes and says, I'm ever so sorry, we're just running a bit slow, it'll be another 15 minutes. You go, oh yeah, sure, it's fine, no worries, carry on. I can carry on my conversation and stop worrying about it. And it's managing those expectations. And I think that what you forget is that actually your customers are actually, there's a lot of anxiety created by them You know, as I said to you, you know, the most difficult customers in a queue at a bar are the ones that don't know how long it's going to be before they get served, and a feeling like, I want to be served in order. You better serve me next. You know, if I'm next, you want me, don't you? And until they get to the front and they know that you know it's them next, they're stressed. And that brings out the worst in people.
Yeah.
But so the best thing you can do, customer service, but best thing you can do is communicate. Really.
I was going to say, as a customer, that is it. I just hadn't really realised that it's, oh my God, am I going to have to say something? And then am I the one being out of order? Are they going to think I'm being rude? I'm not trying to be rude. You know, and it's all that anxiety, and that's what makes me feel stressed and uncomfortable, which makes it for an unpleasant experience. It makes me then perhaps attribute that experience to the staff, but actually it's just the way things are. And had they just told me, I would have been like, oh yeah, that's fine, it's all good.
And I think that's the other thing. I think that staff don't necessarily appreciate sometimes the high levels of anxiety and social anxiety even that their customers are experiencing. You know, it's very easy to just assume that everyone that goes into a pub's quite comfortable with going to the bar and ordering their drink, but they're not all. Not all. Some of them are actually really shy people who don't want to speak, and they're scared of it, or it causes them high anxiety to do so. It doesn't mean they don't want to be in the pub and they don't want a drink. They just want it to be made as easy as possible for them. And I think that's what as staff we're trying to do. Yeah. So communications really, and being kind to people, I think is the key to it.
I mean, I know we mentioned in one of the earlier weeks about me talking about the transferable skills of hospitality, and that communication and that kindness and the sort of empathy you have for your customers are just massively transferable. And I was saying that my experience was that's the foundation for everything I've done in my work since then, and it's part of who I am as a person now, and it's a great place to start.
Yes, but what hospitality does is it teaches you to be the person that's taking responsibility in that relationship for that you are the one that's looking out for the other person in a conversation, even that you're saying, okay, I need to identify, what makes this conversation easier for this person, and that is the fundamental elements of customer service. How do I make this as easy as possible on the other person in this interaction? And that's such an amazing transferable skill, whether you're working with customers or whether, as you say, just working with people. And everybody needs to work with people, whether it's a member of your team or whether it's even your family. You learn these skills of how you relate to other people and how you can influence how other people are experiencing what's going on. Well, there we go.
That was that then.
I think that's not even customer service, and that's just tip of the iceberg, really, because that's it's just how difficult it is to do what we do in the industry and how complex it can be, but also just the role of the changing role of what somebody working in hospitality used to be to what it is now, but also how complicated it is for the managers and the people in charge to be able to have people understand that. I mean, some people have a natural instinct for this, but not everybody does. No. Anyway, nice to see you.
And you.
Yeah, lovely. So it's Christmas next week.
God. Are you ready? I'm not ready.
I am actually, I say
it's first year ever.
My first year not being an operator for pretty much ever. Or I say, because I was working in the industry from 16. So it's the first year. Yes, it's the first year I am already. We're just 6 days away, and I've packed everything, and I'm going. Oh, I haven't done the shopping, but I can't go food shopping until last minute. So nice. I'll just sit and potter for a while. Watch a few Christmas films. Go out. Oh, I went out this weekend. I've been in Birmingham for the weekend doing proper Christmas full on. Went to a concert at the arena. Went to the Christmas market. amazing. What we didn't go in any of the. They had rides and ice rink there as well, and I didn't go in. And we stood and watched them for a while and said, "These people are crazy. What are you doing on these?" Had a nice wander round. Went to an amazing coffee shop for breakfast. Went to some great real ale craft bars. Stayed in a hotel. Stayed up all night listening to the taxis banging their horns outside. It was, fun. But the city centre's fun. It was fun.
I was going to say, you got to enjoy the hospitality rather than provide it on this occasion for the first Christmas ever.
It was really, really lovely. I genuinely really excited walking around Birmingham, absolutely packed out. Every venue with people on the street, and it was lovely. Everyone's in their sparkly glitter. It was lovely. I just love it. I love this industry, and I love the opportunities it gives. Christmas is a great time for the industry. It's really busy and it's really stressful on occasions, but also really enjoyable because you know that you're part of people's celebration. It's lovely.
I was going to say that the levels of stress are much higher, but then so are the rewards. So,
Anyway, lovely. Well, I'll see you after Christmas. Well, actually, I won't because I'll see you at Christmas, but we won't be doing one of these.
No, not Christmas. I'm not doing this on Christmas Day.
No. I will see you Christmas Day with all the family.
Lovely.
And we all get together. All right?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, lovely. I'll see you later. Bye.